Community Treasurer. The purpose of the Community Treasurer is to maintain and monitor the financial transactions and records of the community. Module 2. In this module, we will discuss various ways community budgets are developed, how to track and report on the progress of your budgets, introduce you to the Special Olympics Ontario financial spreadsheet and the relationship between the Community Treasurer, community clubs, and community fundraising. Community funds. 40% of Special Olympic Ontario funds are generated at the community level through local volunteers' fundraising efforts. Local athlete registration fees, fundraisers, sponsorships, and donations are the most prevalent source of community income. 100% of funds generated at the community level are used at the community level. There are currently no membership or accreditation fees collected by SOO. Athlete registration fees are determined by each community individually. These fees are based on the pragmatic costs associated with each sport program and on the historical fundraising success of the local volunteer body. Some communities choose to fundraise and solicit 100% of the funds needed to run programs in their communities, while others use a combination of registration fees and fundraising endeavors to run their sport programs and competitions. It is up to each community to determine what registration fee, if any, should be charged for each of their clubs. There are many fundraisers held throughout Ontario that are used to generate funds for the local Special Olympics Ontario programs every year. Many SOO community programs choose to have corporate or individuals sponsor their clubs or events. Sponsorship can be a great way to generate funds at the local level. However, it is important to remember that community groups should not be approaching national or provincial sponsors. Creating a budget. It is the responsibility of each community council to determine their yearly budget needs and how to best create the yearly budget. If you have any questions about developing your community budget, please contact with your district developer or SOO's financial department. The first step in developing a budget involves gathering the following information: a list of items which can be approved, historical financial information, council member wish lists, fundraising plans and projected income, projected expenses from clubs, and previously approved budgets. Historical financial information. The first thing you should present when preparing to discuss the budget is the historical financial information of the community. Include items like the current bank account balance, the percentage of projected budget spending that was reached in the previous years, outstanding incoming and outgoing funds, and unexpected transactions from the previous couple of years. Fundraising plan and projected income. It is recommended that the community treasurer develop a close working relationship with the community fundraiser or sit on the fundraising committee. Prior to determining how much money you are going to assign to each budget item, it is important to first determine the pot of money you have to work with. The fundraiser committee should develop a yearly fundraising plan which includes fundraisers they are committing to holding and running, as well as the projected income from each fundraiser. The projected income from the fundraisers should be included in your budget. Registration fees. Another important source of income to consider is the registration fee that each athlete will be charged for each sport program they participate in. When determining what the registration fee for each sport program should be, the treasurer, along with the community council, should look at what the cost of the facility rental is going to be for each sport program and how many athletes they are expected to pay registration fees for the sport. Communities utilize various methods to determine registration fees. Some include flat fee for participation for the year, sport-specific fees, flat fee per sport, and no registration fee charged. It is important to note that the community will be responsible for fundraising to cover any approved budget costs that are not covered by the registration fee. Previously approved budgets. A great resource to use when developing your budget is approved community budgets from previous years. The Community Council should review these documents and look for actual revenue generated from fundraisers versus the amount that was projected, equipment and uniform that has been purchased in the last couple of years, the percentage of their approved budgets that council members and clubs spent, and unexpected expenses that have to be paid. What can be approved? Sport clubs and community councils are only permitted to raise funds and to expense funds for items directly related to our mission statement and our charitable purpose. Therefore, any monies that are generated using the Special Olympics Ontario name or are donated to SOO must be used to provide or support programs to registered athletes. Under no circumstances can funds raised using the Special Olympics Ontario name be donated to another organization or used for a purpose other than progressing the mission of the organization. As a not-for-profit organization, Special Olympics Ontario is required to utilize 80% of all generated funds on a yearly basis. This means that at least 80% of all funds generated at the community level must be spent during the fiscal year on community sport programs, competitions, or on administrative costs associated with the running of the community or sport programs. Administrative volunteer wish lists. Prior to setting your budget, you should ask each administrative volunteer to provide you with their wish list and projected budget for the coming fiscal year. Budgets from administrative volunteers could include council members, photocopying, mailing, etc., volunteer coordination, volunteer recognition, recruitment, orientation, coach training, etc., public relations coordinator, marketing, communications, etc., registrar, athlete recruitment, athlete recognition, empowerment training, etc., fundraising coordinator, fundraising expenses, etc. Some of the administrative budgets will tie into each other. For instance, the fundraising coordinator will work with the public relations coordinator to market and advertise any upcoming events. Club budgets, cash in. The information that clubs provide regarding their budget request and wish lists are an integral part of the community budget. Proper communication in this regard is essential. Clubs should include a list of all of their revenue sources for the upcoming season. This could include donations, fundraising, other athlete contribution, competition registration fees, other revenue, athlete registration fees. Please note that in some cases, some of these line items may not apply at the club level. If communities have a community fundraiser, then often the club only has to include their athlete registration fees and expenses on their sport club budget form. Club budgets cash out. Clubs should also provide the community treasurer with an accounting of all of their expense items for the upcoming season. This could include uniforms, competition fees, transportation, facility rental, recognition, new equipment, administration, other training, coach volunteer education, equipment repairs and maintenance, or other expenses. Putting it all together. Once the community treasurer has received copies of all of the projected budgets from the various sport clubs and volunteers, an overall projected budget for the community should be created. For each line item, record the total amount spent for that item during the last fiscal year. In a second column, record the amount that each sport club or volunteer is asking for in the upcoming fiscal year. This projected budget is a great way for council members and volunteers to be able to see if there are any large expenses coming up. Tried and tested models. When it comes to determining how to create and approve your yearly community budget, there are a variety of methods you can choose. As a community council, you should discuss what seems most appropriate to you and be open to changing your method if needed. Here are some ideas of blueprints community councils across Ontario use to determine their yearly budgets. Set administrative budget and a lot of money to clubs based on the participation percentage of athletes. Set budget based on previous year's spending and include slight increase for inflation. And review all budget requests and determine what to approve. Approving the budget. Once all expenses and sources of revenue have been collected and recorded on the Community Council's projected budget spreadsheet, it is important for the Community Council to hold a budget meeting to discuss and vote on the projected budget. It is sometimes not possible for the Community Council to approve all expense items that every sport club or administrative budget proposes. If there are line items in some budgets that the Council cannot approve due to financial reasons, or because the line item is unreasonable or outside the purview of the organizations, it is important to go back to the individual that submitted the budget to let them know what it is and isn't being approved. Once the community budget is set for the year, it should be sent to your district developer and made public to the volunteers in the community. Often communities choose to share their approved budget during the general members meeting. Unexpected or not approved expenses. During the year, extra expenses always crop up. It is recommended that the Community Council implement a policy whereby volunteers are required to submit a request for funds to the Council for approval before any costs above and beyond the approved budget are incurred. This will limit the number of last-minute requests of funds that are not accounted for in the original budget. Tracking and reporting on the budget. Now that you have your spreadsheet started, it is important that you constantly update it to reflect the incoming and outgoing funds. The spreadsheet provided is set up with preset formulas that will automatically keep track of the percentage currently spent of each line item. You will be asked to report on the status of the budget at your Community Council meetings, the general member meeting, and sometimes coaches will ask you about the status of their specific budget. If you maintain up-to-date, accurate records, this will be as easy as pulling up your spreadsheet.